Oh, you snuck in on me again. Well, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Steve Smith. I'm a middle school teacher who likes to cook in my spare time. My students call me Mr. Steve. And so welcome to Mr. Steve's Kitchen. Today, wait, I'm gonna give you a little hint as to what we're doing today. Ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. Check that out. Doesn't fit quite the same as it did when I worked at Pizza Hut. What do you think we're making today? We are making pizza! All right, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is get our yeast activated. And so we're going to add 1 packet of active yeast. So you're gonna cut that open and then pop that right in there. You're gonna put this in the bowl of your stand mixer, and then you're gonna follow that with a teaspoon of granulated sugar. This is gonna give that yeast a little something to feed off of. And then we're gonna you wanna make sure that your warm water is at least 110, 115 degrees. Too hot, it'll kill. Too cool, and it won't activate the yeast. So we're just gonna pour that in there and give that a little stir just to dissolve it just a little bit. And then we're gonna let that sit for 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes to allow that yeast to start coming alive. So I'll see you in 5 or 10 minutes. All right, it has been about 8 minutes. So we are gonna take a look in the bowl of our mixer, and I'm gonna show you the foam that comes up when that yeast comes alive. So looking right here, you can see all that foam that has come up in that mixture of yeast, sugar, and warm water. So we are going to start building our dough. All right, the first thing we need to do is add our dough mixing attachment. So this is our dough hook. So we're gonna add that in. The first thing we do is we're gonna add, this is 1 teaspoon of salt. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So that's 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And we're gonna start that mixing. So we're gonna just put that on a low, lock that in, we're gonna put that on low, and just let that start to mix up a little bit. And then as that mixes, we're going to add our flour. So I like to do it this way to create a little dust shield. Or funnel rather. The way that we do this is we're gonna add a cup at a time. So I'm gonna do just a cup of flour to start and let that get incorporated in. And then another cup. Let that get incorporated in. You want to do this slowly so that the dough will come together appropriately. If you do it all at one time, it's going to be dry in parts and wet in parts. This allows you to actually get your flour all mixed in without having to do a lot of scraping and mixing on your own. So put a little bit more in. And then we'll add the last of this flour, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, we've got all of our flour in. And we're mixing. It's a little bit dry right now. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if you can see right in here, it's coming together. It's going to take a little bit for it to all come together, but that's exactly what you want. And now we're going to mix it. We're going to scoot it up to a medium speed to allow that to really start to come together. And we're just going to let that go for about 5 minutes. All right, it has been just under 5 minutes. You can see that the dough is peeking out right here. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you can see that the dough has risen up out of the container. It has formed kind of a loaf of its own in there. So now what we're gonna do is put it back on for 2 minutes, and this will knead the dough. You can take it out, flour your surface, press it out, and knead by hand for about 3 minutes. But if you just put this on a medium speed and let it go for 2 minutes, it kneads the dough perfectly. So just put that on medium and let it go. We'll let that go for 2 minutes. We'll be right back. All right, it's been about 2 minutes. We're gonna shut this off, lift this up, and now this is our dough, okay? So it should be elastic and soft and smooth. It's not sticky. You can put it anywhere you want to. It's not gonna stick to anything. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab a bowl. We're gonna grab a bowl. So, wait, let's try this again. Cut the last part. Action. All right, it has been about 2 minutes. Our dough is kneaded, so we have kneaded it. I need you. I need you. That's how you knead the dough, right? Okay, so it's smooth, it's elastic. You can put it on any surface, it's not gonna stick. So the next thing we wanna do is we want to use some saran wrap and a bowl. In this bowl, we're gonna put just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom, less than a teaspoon really. And then we're gonna take our dough and shape it into a ball, just like that. And then we wanna rub the top of it all around, and then flip it over. You want that oil to coat every surface of that dough. Because what we're gonna do now is we're gonna let this rise, and it will get really sticky if it rises and there's no olive oil in it. So we're gonna let that rise up. So we're gonna add some saran wrap to that. Let me wash my hands real quick. All right, hands are washed. We're gonna add saran wrap. So, saran wrap is one of my least favorite things to work with because inevitably I always get it stuck to one side. So let's see how this works. Oh my gosh, because I have viewers, it's working. Look at that luck you all gave me. All right, so now you just pull that saran wrap down tightly, give it a seal on the edges. Then you're gonna take a cloth, fold it in half, put that on top. We're going to set it aside. I'm gonna put mine on the center part toward the front of my oven. The reason for that is because you want a dark, warm spot to proof your dough or allow it to rise. You can turn the oven on for a few minutes and then turn it off and stick the dough in there. But what I like to do is I've preheated the oven to 300. I have a vent that comes off of the back of my oven, so that heat is going to come across the back of this bowl and will allow that to proof nicely. We're going to let it proof for 1 hour. So I'll see you in 1 hour, and that dough will have doubled in size. See you then. All right, welcome back. It has been an hour. We have our dough resting here. It has proofed. It has been an hour, and let's take a look inside and see if it has doubled in size. All right. So our dough has doubled. Let's take this plastic wrap off so we can see it. So it is much bigger than it was before. So let's start working with it. All right, so our dough has doubled in size. We can see that here in the bowl. I'm going to put a little bit of flour out on the surface. We're going to turn this out, and we're just going to push it down just a little bit. Give it a couple of kneading movements. All right, now once we have it in a shape a little bit like this, you want it to be even, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut it, and we want it to be enough so that we get 3 pieces. So there we go. So we're going to cut this. All right, so take our dough cutter. We can cut it in half here, or in thirds rather, here and here, and that will be 3 sizes. What I'm gonna do, you can get 3 probably medium pizzas out of this if you cut one here, and you have 3 equal sizes. I'm cutting it in half because I'm going to use this section for 1 pizza, and I'm gonna use this section for another pizza. So I've got, this is going to be a large, like, hand-tossed pizza, and this one is going to be a medium pan-style pizza. I'm going to show you really quickly how to do the pan-style pizza. So this is a Pizza Hut pan. Don't tell anybody that I have it. I don't even know how I have it. I worked there a long time ago, and somehow I ended up with this pan. So if you have a cake pan, this is about an 8-inch cake pan, you can use that as well. So I'm going to use this. In the bottom of this, I'm going to add just enough olive oil, which looks like a lot, to coat the bottom. When I worked at Pizza Hut back when I was in high school and just after, we used to have these big pumps, and we would pump oil in for this pan pizza, and we would all talk about how fattening and gross it was, but it was amazing as far as flavor went. So now with this piece of dough, we're gonna put it in here. So we want to kind of flatten it out just a little bit, and we'll put a little bit more flour down. We want to give it a little bit of a flattening, and we want to bring it around to about half the size that it is. We're going to let this rise one more time. This stretching technique that I'm using, notice I'm not tossing it up in the air, because that will rip your dough. So I've got a disc that's just less than this pan, okay? So I'm gonna put this in here, and notice it does not take up the entire pan, okay? So I'm going to, at this point, I'm gonna take some saran wrap, and I'm going to proof this again for another hour. So, oh, wrong direction. There we go. It's always easier when you do it that way. All right, so I'm gonna cover this. I'm gonna put this on the front burner of my stove so that it stays a little bit warm, and that is gonna allow that dough to rise. I'm also gonna put my towel back over the top of it, and we're gonna let that dough puff up, and that's gonna give us that pan dough that we're looking for. Now, as far as the other one, I'm gonna show you how to make this into the actual crust. We need a lot of flour here. So we're just gonna knead it a little bit, get it down to a workable size. And then what I like to do at this point, I have flour in here, so my pan is gonna turn. That flour will let that turn as well. And I'm gonna put just a little bit of flour on the bottom of this. A little bit more. Okay. Now, we're gonna put this in the bottom of this pan, and then we're going to turn it inside the pan. The reason why I'm doing it inside of this pan instead of on the board with a lot more flour is because this is going to let me measure out and see exactly where I need to stop stretching. You have to be mindful of the center of the dough because you don't want any of that, the center, to pull apart. So what I'm doing now is just kind of kneading it. I'm gonna flip it over. I want everything to be about the same size. You can see that as I do this, I'm pushing outward, and that is stretching that dough. So notice I'm turning and stretching, turning and stretching, turning and stretching, mindful of the center. Again, we want this to reach the edges of this pan. We do not want to tear the dough. If you tear the dough and you already have it proofed and it's got a little bit of oil, a little bit of flour on it, sometimes it can be a chore to get it back together. Sometimes you won't be able to get it back together. So you have to like stop, let it re-proof, and start over. At this point, I'm about halfway there. You can see that. So I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna start pushing the other way. Again, with my fingers, I'm gonna pound down just a little bit. And that's gonna allow me to press out this dough without tearing it. Because again, if you tear it, you're gonna have a little hole in the middle that has a lot of sauce and toppings, but no dough. And that's not what you want, because you want that crust everywhere. So now that I've got it almost there, now I'm just grabbing and stretching near the edge. I'm not grabbing from the center, because again, I don't want any holes in there. And then just get it to that perfect round shape to match the pan. And this is what it should look like when you're finished with a hand tossed dough. So if you want to get fancy, go for it. Take it out, flip it, turn it, do whatever you need to. We used to do that at Pizza Hut sometimes. I'm not sure I could still do it at this point. Maybe some point I'll try. But this is what you're looking for. So what you want to make sure to do is, before you do anything else, you want to get a fork and poke some holes in this. I'm going to do that really quickly. So you just want to go around, turn your pan, go around the side, poke holes. Make sure you feel it making connection below, and do that all the way around. What this does is keep those big holes from popping up in the center of your dough and causing a lot of your toppings to slide. So if you have enough of these holes in here, you won't have that big dough bubble that rises up and all the toppings go to the side, and then people are wondering, why didn't I get any toppings? They all went to that side. So this alleviates that problem. It's just called perforating the dough. Okay, so you see all the little holes in there? I don't know if you can see that. It's perforated now. And at this point, you're ready to go. So what I always like to do is give the outside a little bit of a spray non-stick. That's gonna help it to crisp up and golden brown on the edge. You're gonna throw some sauce in the center. When you sauce this, make sure to stay about a ½ inch from the edge, because you don't want your sauce bubbling over and going under your crust, because if it goes under your crust, guess what? You're right, it sticks. We don't want it to stick. And so at this point, this is our pizza dough. So you can put your sauce on, whatever sauce you choose. You can drizzle with olive oil and put some pepperoni and some mozzarella on it and throw it in the oven, or you can do a traditional tomato sauce, pizza sauce, and that's probably what I'm gonna do. But that's how you make it. When you put your toppings on, make sure that you don't overload the toppings, especially not in the center. Put your cheese around the edge, and then you're gonna put your toppings on and evenly distribute them, and then put cheese on top and slide that in the oven. 500 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. Start checking at 12 minutes. By 15 minutes, the crust should be golden brown. There shouldn't be anything risen up out of this, but this is, that will give you a nice crispy pizza, just like Pizza Hut, and it'll slide right off of this sheet pan. Just get you a pizza pan. Go to the store and get a pizza pan. It makes it so much easier. You can also use a rectangular cookie sheet if you'd like. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult to get all of the pizza in the right areas there. At this point, this dough is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it in saran wrap and put it in the oven, because I'm not ready to bake it yet. And then I'll bring it out and dress it, and I'll have dinner later. But this is how to make pizza dough. So I hope you enjoyed it. All right, welcome back. So now it's time to reveal what 45 minutes to an hour looks like. It's been right at an hour for the pan dough, and then I'm going to show you how to make it. So this is the pan dough once it has proofed. So you see it expanded to the size of the pan. So I'm going to pull the plastic wrap off, put that in our trash bowl, and then we're going to sauce this pizza, and then I'm going to top it. The way that I used to, like a favorite of mine back when I worked at Pizza Hut was a hamburger pizza, and so I'm going to do a variation of that. The first thing I want to do is I'm cheating and using some store-bought pizza sauce just because it has all the flavorings already. So, you know, if you want to make your own, go for it. I may venture into that at some point, but right now I'm using the jar. And so you're just going to put the sauce on a little bit at a time. You can put a little bit in the center and kind of spread that out. You want to get it to the edge, but not all the way. See, notice that I'm leaving a little bit of a rim of sauce around the edge. And then so that was about 2 tablespoons of sauce, and that's all you need. If you over sauce it, the dough isn't going to cook correctly. The toppings will slide. It's going to be messy. So just go with 2 tablespoons of sauce. This is a small, or an 8-inch pizza. Now with mozzarella, notice that I've got 2 different types of cheese here. I've got mozzarella, and I've also got a blend of Colby and Jack cheese, or Colby Jack. And so that's going to go on top. But for the mozzarella, I'm just going to make a border around the edge. And what this does is keep the toppings from sliding with that sauce. So a little bit on the dough, a little bit on the sauce, and that kind of just works as a little bit of a binder to keep that from sliding everywhere. And that's how they do it at Pizza Hut. I don't know that I should be saying that as much as I'm saying it. Anyway, and then whatever left you have, just sprinkle it through the middle. Now this is some dried basil that I had fresh and wasn't going to use it, so I dried it. I'm just going to sprinkle that in here because that's going to give it that nice fresh pizza taste. And then we're going to start adding. So I've got, this is about a cup of ground beef. So I'm just going to sprinkle that on. Now what you don't want to do, like I mentioned earlier, is you don't want to overload the center of your pizza because you want it to cook evenly. So go around the edge with your toppings and then just put a little bit in the center. So that's, like I said, that's about a cup of ground beef, and I used about half of it. So you don't want to go crazy with it. I might do just a little bit more. And then I'm gonna throw on some jalapenos because I like my spice. So I've got some jalapenos here. I'm just gonna spread those out. And then I'm gonna throw some onions on there as well. These are fresh diced onions. You can grill all this stuff if you want to before you put it on the pizza to give it a little bit more of a flavor. I like the raw veggies. One thing you wanna make sure is never put raw meat on the pizza because it's not gonna cook in the time that we cook the pizza. Now I'm gonna add some tomatoes on top because it's a burger, right? So I'm gonna add some tomatoes. And tomatoes, I don't know if you've ever had tomatoes on pizza, but it gives it like this nice, fresh feeling. Nice, I mean, maybe it feels nice. It gives you a nice, fresh taste. And I'm using all the tomatoes. And then spreading them out toward the edge a little bit. And now, the last but not least, we're gonna come in with the remainder of our cheese, and we're just gonna sprinkle that all on top. Being mindful of the edge, you know, don't get so close to the edge that you start to fear it sticking, because the last thing you want is for this pizza to stick in the pan when you try to pull it out. We used to, at Pizza Hut when I worked there, we used to try to master not having to use a spatula on this type of pizza. We would just pop it, because we had these little grip things, which I don't have. But we would pop it out of the pan, because when it comes out, it's like a solid piece. So that is our prepped pizza. See how easy that was? Now this goes into a 500-degree oven for 12 to 15 minutes. Start taking it 12 minutes. So I'm just gonna put it in here, and I will see you in 12 minutes. All right, welcome back. It has been right at 14 minutes. So I said 12 to 15 minutes. Let's take a look at it. All right, this pizza looks amazing. So this is a small deep dish pizza that you would normally get at a place like Pizza Hut. And that's where I learned to make them. So to take this out of the pan, take a spatula, go around one time, pull it right out. So the whole thing should come out, nothing should stick because you put the oil in. Notice the oil soaked up into that crust. That's gonna give us a nice flavorful crust. We're gonna get rid of this. And at this point, what you can do is you can chop it up and serve it. You can put it back in that dish if you'd like to. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna let it rest, and then I will cut it up and take some pictures, and then I will post them like I always do. So if you enjoyed this, I have plenty of other videos on my YouTube channel, Mr. Steve Loves to Cook, so check those out. Remember to subscribe, like it, click all the buttons, whatever you need to do, but come watch me, because it's a good time. Thanks for showing up today. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you like it if you try it out. Thanks. Have a great day.